Right? We're not saying he was born in 609. But this is the period when revelation began. He was 40 years old when the revelation began. He died at the age of 63. Okay? And Prophet Muhammad, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, he was part of a group of people in Mecca who used to go out onto the desert and reflect and to meditate. He had, from youth, rejected the worship of idols, which was common in Mecca at the time where he was born. And there are other people like him who used to do that. Who used to go out in the desert and meditate, pray to God, believing in a one God, but not having the benefit of revelation to know exactly how to pray and everything. But they used to go and pray and fast anyway. They were a part of a group who are known as the Hunafa, is the term which they used to refer to them. Now, I won't go into too much detail of this. This is really in the area of Sirah, the biography of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. But you know that when he was meditating in the cave of Hira, the angel Gabriel came to him and the process of revelation began. When the revelation began, at first he was fearful. He was not certain that this was revelation. He was not certain that maybe it was a trick, a devilish trick on him, etc. So he himself sought to find ways and means of determining whether in fact this was revelation or not. He asked his wife, he asked others, he went even to, there was the relative of his wife, Waraqah ibn Nawfal, who was a Christian at the time, reading the scriptures, and they related to him what experience the Prophet had had, and Nawfal confirmed to him that yes, this was in fact revelation. This was not something devilish. In any case, the point is that revelation began at this point. When it first began, in 609, Prophet Muhammad, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, used to try to repeat whatever was related to him by Angel Gabriel. He would try to repeat after him in order that he wouldn't forget it. However, God revealed to him that there was no need for him to do this, that God would preserve it in his heart. And this is in chapter 75, verses 16 and 18. It is mentioned there in the Quran. God says there, "Do not move your tongue hastily to learn it. Surely we have collected it and recite it. So when we recite it, follow its recital." From this point, Prophet Muhammad, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, submitted his affairs to God completely. Whatever was revealed to him remained imprinted in his heart. God caused this not to be forgotten. Now, he then conveyed whatever was revealed to him to his companions, those around him. And they, in turn, recorded, because Prophet Muhammad, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, was illiterate in the sense that he could neither read nor write. Literacy was not that common in Arabia at the time. There were some amongst them who were literate, but like in many parts of the world, there was only a small segment of any given society that were literate. Now, the Prophet, may God's peace and blessing upon him, was not literate. So what happened is that the message that he conveyed had to be recorded by those around him in one way or another. Now, he used to recite the portions of Quran that came to him in congregational prayer. And you know this is done aloud. So his companions would hear the portions of the Quran recited aloud in congregational prayer. And this would help them to remember it. Whenever someone entered Islam, they were also taught the prayer, just as many of you are convert Muslims, new Muslims. When you first come into Islam, you're taught Fatiha, you're taught some chapters from the Quran. In the same way, this is the same tradition that was from the time of the Prophet. Whenever new people came into Islam, they were taught the basic prayers and they were taught chapters from the Quran to use in their prayers. There were some amongst his companions, those who accepted Islam, who were scribes who were able to write. And he chose a number of them to be his personal scribes who would be with him throughout the rest of his life. Whenever revelation came, he would recite it to them and they would record it. Furthermore, he encouraged his companions, saying that the best amongst them were those who learned the Quran and taught it to others. This is a very common statement or hadith of Prophet Muhammad. خيركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه. The best of you are those who learn the Quran and teach it to others. So he encouraged his companions to learn the Quran and teach it. So there were four basic methods by which the Quran was preserved in the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad. It was preserved in the memories through recitation in congregational prayer, one. It was preserved by those who came into Islam having to learn portions of the Quran, two. This is all in memory. Three, he encouraged his companions to learn and to teach the Quran. And four, there were scribes who wrote down the Quran as it was revealed. So the Quran, in the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, was recorded in the memory and in writing. It was recorded in the memory and in writing. And it's very important for us to understand the significance of memory in those days. In a society which was fundamentally an oral culture, their memories were very strong. It's not like us today, who we depend on writing. And by depending on writing, our ability to memorize is weak. But a society that doesn't write, all it does is convey things orally, then it means that their memory is very strong. It means from childhood. You see, you have a society from childhood. When parents want something, they instruct their children, they give them lists of things to do, to go to the market, to buy things. They're not writing it down on paper. Like now when we want to send our kids to the market, we write down the things on paper to buy something from the shop. Exactly what we need, we have to write it all down. If it's more than 2 or 3 things, we've got to write down a list for them. In those days, they just told the kid 2 or 3 times. They told him, it was in his head, he went and bought. If he didn't, he got a spanking, whatever. He was encouraged from the early ages to retain whatever he heard or she heard. So a society that goes like that, naturally their ability to hear and to memorize is much greater than it is in our time. However, the Quran was not only recorded in that method, it was also recorded, as I said, by the scribes who were around the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. They recorded it in writing. Now, at that time, of course, writing materials were not readily available. Paper was not invented. In Egypt, they were making papyrus paper, reed paper, but it was not available in Arabia.